Hello, welcome to CafeSoCo. My name's Dan Gold, and as ever, if you watch CafeSoCo quite regularly, you'll notice that at the beginning of this, I always go, because it takes a little while for Blab to actually show you that it's recording. My name's Dan Gold. I'm here in Saskatoon in Canada. We're hoping to connect with Tim Martin from Executive Style, and he is in Australia. Executive Style is a publication, a lifestyle publication, featuring fashion, luxury, quality brands, etc. Tim and I used to work together at the Economist Group at TVC, and we worked on a number of campaigns together. I primarily worked in one department and he worked in another, and we kind of had a lot of crossover at various points. But now that he's working on the media side once again, it's just really interesting for me to speak to him to find out, well, you know, how different it is being back on the media side, but also as a content producer for a media outlet, what it is they look for from luxury brands and how they share those stories. Now, I will look away once in a while to look at my phone to see if there's a message from him. I hope everything's okay. And yeah, all the messages have been delivered, and he said he might be overrunning ever so slightly. What I'm hoping is that we haven't got one of those classic, and I say classic, time zone differences where in an hour's time he's going to connect to me. However, this may be a short blab today, but I will be going through a number of tips for content for luxury brands, producing it, and the platforms on which to put that material. Now, when we talk about luxury brands, one of the most important things is to identify what a luxury brand is. It's not exactly the same as a fast-moving consumer good. That's stuff that you'd buy every day, like toilet paper. That's a fast-moving consumer good. But you would make a discretionary purchase over an expensive watch. A regular digital watch isn't a luxury item, but maybe an Apple Watch could be a luxury item whilst it's also falling into the technology zone. So if you've got any questions, I've got a few people watching via the website, and it's still slightly irritating just looking at this, that when you use the embed through our server to the Blab website, you can't tell how many people are watching on the Blab site. And I submitted that as a message to the people at Blab, but we shall see if they reply and fix that, because it'd be really nice to be able to demonstrate how many people are watching this. Currently got about 100, and it's fluctuating. It's about 105 people watching worldwide, which is always a good start via the embed. And there's about 18 to 20 of them who are currently in Australia. So Tim, I hope someone comes and knocks on your door. So hopefully we'll connect with him shortly. Luxury items. So they're discretionary. They're something to be enjoyed as a little bit of a treat. And some things really are luxuries. I mean, going out and buying an Aston Martin certainly isn't going to be, you know, something you do just because you need a car. You might use it as a daily commuter, but it depends on the person that you are. You might be a big sports car fan and you've always wanted one, but you still live in your house that you've always lived in, down the road you've always lived down. But it's highly unlikely. Anyway, luxury brands are aspirational. Luxury brands and luxury items are usually very well made. The companies often have a long lineage. So they often trade on their reputation. They often trade on their experience, their knowledge, and this history that they've got. All you have to do is think about Chanel and think about brands which really do leverage their history as an organization. Rolls-Royce is a classic example. Modern technology, cutting edge, but when you think of Rolls-Royce, you think of luxury, and you also think, well, all these cars are back in the 1930s and these beautiful long bodies. So I've got a few tips for you for using digital, and after all, CafeSoCo is primarily about digital, using digital to market luxury brands. And I'll do these in no particular order, but if there's a physical retail store for items that fit into a retail store, then making sure that there's brand consistency between what's seen in store and what's seen online, because we've all had shopping experiences where you go into a regular store and it doesn't really match up with what's on the website, and the look and feel slightly different. Now, with brand consistency, whatever market you're pitching at, that's not going to really be an issue. But if you're in Knightsbridge in London, for example, and you're at one of the car stores there, let's say McLaren, the experience that you get on the website is the same experience that you get in store. Obviously, it doesn't have a personal welcomer there on the website, but the information, the way it's presented and look and feel is absolutely consistent across the two. So that's very important. And don't forget that the online experience could refer people to the real world experience. And that's, you know, a very important thing to remember no matter what market you're in. Your website has to look like it's going to get you on that journey to go in store if you have physical bricks and mortar stores. So, you know, do consider that. Something about luxury brands is often they're very expensive. They're at the top of the tree when it comes to costs, and therefore they attract an exclusive bunch because, again, we're going on that disposable income and the ability to buy something that you could buy cheaper but wouldn't be as good. And with that comes exclusivity, because then exclusive items, luxury items, aren't necessarily in the price point of everyone. And that's an interesting thing. When you come to marketing your luxury items, where do you price things? Well, obviously, you're not going to price it around the level that everyone can afford it, but you make it that little bit more expensive or significantly more expensive. You're actually sending a message to the marketplace and to the consumers of who you want as an audience. And luxury brands spend an awful lot of money, as do FMCGs, in understanding who their audience is. And research that is, down to the detail of, how many children, what geographical areas they live in, how many vehicles they have, how large the property is that they live in, do they have a holiday home? All these bits of information lead together to positioning the brand and then the price point as well. So creating a sense of exclusivity is very important, whether you're in the real world or the online world. And just because it's online doesn't mean that you're sending it to a wider audience. All you're doing is making your information available to a very wide audience, but that niche is still only going to be interested. You're still synonymous with being expensive. Other things to consider: when you've got a luxury brand, you've got to be appealing to people and their status, their position in the world. Do you fit in with where they're at? Some incredibly rich people are determined only to ever have a really basic watch because they're actually making a statement against conformity. Yet other people will go, I've worked hard, I've earned this, this is mine, this is what I'm doing with this, this is what I'm going to be enjoying. So that's an interesting element of luxury. I think that one of the places I would advise you to go and have a look is on the Venture Harbor website, ventureharbor.com. And there's some information that you'll find on there, which is in line with what I'm speaking about at the moment. And I think that there's a lot to be said about doing your research, understanding that market. But if you're not the person who runs the brand, if you're not the person who is making items for sale, and you're not the person who is marketing them, then actually we look at the production side, and this blab particularly is about production. Let me have a quick swig when we look at media production, and you're doing a video for online, or maybe you're producing a video for your magazine, or maybe it's even a news piece for a luxury news channel, the old-fashioned TV, for example, then just as much of photographing or filming the product is important. That's important, yes, and getting it into the right light, but it's the ambience where it's been photographed. Now, if you've got this big launch, a big event for VIPs to come to, it's very important to make sure that you photograph the VIPs having a good time. If there's any celebrities, what you'll do is you'll interview them on a red carpet with a branded background behind you, a checkerboard of the company logo, and you will book a high quality venue. Now, it doesn't have to be an expensive venue, but it has to be a thought-provoking venue. So I've seen some of the best luxury events have been at opera houses, especially for jewelry, because they want to have that air of being classical and the heritage, and aiming at that, I don't know, the top 1%, let's say. So when those productions are being filmed, it's really interesting to see the shots of the celebrities coming through wearing some of the items. If again, it's that luxury jewelry, or if it's the launch of a car, you'll often see the cars parked in a strategically important position where everyone's seeing them, and you'll get interested parties and celebrities sitting or standing around the vehicle or sitting inside the vehicle. And that association with influential people, whether they be celebrities or people from a certain market that are associated with the luxury lifestyle, then it's important to include them in those shots. And if you look on YouTube or on various magazine sites at the launch of brand X or Y or Z, and it can be anything from jewelry to expensive drinks to vehicles to clothing, fragrances, what you'll see really consistently when they're filming a launch event, there will always be shots of the product, always shots of what we call the beautiful people, and they're always people that are absolutely aligned with the target audience that the brand is trying to sell to, because people buy from people. And just psychologically, if you see a video with a luxury car in it and there's people dressed incredibly nicely at a champagne reception, that immediately paints a picture in your idea of the people that they're trying to target. If that same vehicle was in a video with people with sports gear on, your mind is taken immediately to a different place, and that might not be the place where the luxury brands want to particularly market their products. So that's a very important thing. Go and have a look and see how other brands are doing it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to content production, but go and look at some of the leads that have been done by other people. And then there's also brand association with events. And often we look at sponsorship and go, okay, today's weather is sponsored by company X, or today's traffic and travel on the local radio station is sponsored by company X. This also happens extensively in the luxury brand market. And what you'll have is polo matches, yacht races. What else will you have? You'll have launch events themselves, and you may find that at the launch of a particularly expensive whiskey, for example, you'll also find that another brand will co-brand with them. So maybe there's a jeweler who has dressed all the guests, and they're all wearing incredibly pretty jewelry. It does happen, and it's interesting to look at what happens out there. Now, the one thing that social media has done really well, and if we focus on the luxury side, social media has given us the opportunity to look at items in different ways. So with videos, we've got behind the scenes, the production process. Facebook videos, we're starting to see those appear there as well. You've got live Q&As, which also happen. But one that's really interesting, considering the significant proportion of female users of this platform, is Pinterest. Now, it's seen as the food and arts and crafts and fashion site, but a lot of the leading fashion brands around the world are using it to position their collection. So when it comes to an autumn, winter, or spring, summer for the following year, you'll see that the official pages actually load into Pinterest as well. I think that you should, as a consumer of content, if you're into that market, you should always have the ability to see multiple brands side by side in a single place. And this is what social media gives to us. I remember speaking to my realtor many years ago back home, and she said to me, there's a reason why in the UK competing realtors tend to have their offices next door to each other. So you'll have a row of 3 to 6 different estate agents or realtors in a row. And what happens is that the people who are looking to buy a house or browse to go and have a look at a house will go and look in one window and then walk next door, have another look in the next one, look in the next one, look in the next one. Now, I said, surely that's self-defeating, because you might lose out to the window next door to you. And they said from their research, if they position their content effectively, if they position their store, their realtors away from everyone else, in a prime location even, they won't get the same level of qualified traffic as being next door to rival companies. And the one thing that Pinterest really does give you is the ability to be on a really straightforward platform, to be able to put your imagery and the supporting copy and then link through to the items which could be bought as a result of that journey, and having it on that platform. So if everyone's doing London Fashion Week as a tag on Pinterest, it'll bring up everyone in one place, and those consumers will be able to have that choice right in front of them. And if the e-commerce side is set up correctly, what will happen is someone will click on Pinterest, they will click on the image, and then it will take them through to the sales page on their retail site. And that's a really cool thing, because it's taking legwork out of that journey. So rather than looking on a page and then just seeing, oh, this is listed here, I'm going to now go onto their website. You just click onto it and you can see it there immediately. I've just seen Tim Martin appear, which is a very, very good thing, and it's great news. And he's just joined Blab. So I'm hoping he's going to press that dial in button momentarily. The other thing that I think that is really interesting for people when they're looking at luxury brands is just that crossover. When they're doing awareness in one outlet, they'll do awareness in other outlets as well. Let's hit this button and hit accept to Tim Martin. Oh, I have to put an earpiece in. I've just been waved at. Hold on, there's a Tim Martin.
G'day, Dan.
How are you?
Good, mate. How are you going?
I'm very, very well. Now we're up. Let me just click over there. We're up to 130 people via the website, and it's you and me directly on Blab. So clearly my embed works, but it's not showing me the numbers, which is really irritating. So I've just been speaking for the last 20 minutes about luxury brands and the marketing on digital platforms and launch events and how you shoot them. And that's really cool. But what I'd like to do is just go back to the beginning ever so slightly and just to have a chat about how you got involved with executive style and how we first met all those years ago.
Well, yeah, we met back in sunny London. How long ago, mate? 2010?
Yeah, 2010. Yeah.
And we were both working for that esteemed agency TVC group. And we hit it off. I think like-minded characters.
We both have an interesting sense of humor. So Just on that bit, so you obviously have gone back to Australia. Firstly, where in Australia? And tell me a little bit about Executive Style and what you do there.
Yeah, so lived in London for 6 years, and then the cold weather was too much for my sensitive Australian bones. So I moved back to Sydney a year ago, and living in Sydney, the greatest city in the world, and working for a title called Executive Style, which is part of Fairfax Media. Fairfax is one of the largest and oldest media companies in Australia, and it's it's basically the most respected sort of media outlet here down under, and Executive Style is their sort of GQ sort of online sort of presence. So we're all about it's gender neutral, but we do sort of sway towards men and sort of male fashion, cars, watches, fine dining, fine drinking, business travel.
That's really intrigued me because when I've looked at Executive Style, I've seen that there's a lot of launches of companies involving, is it whiskey? I've seen a lot of whiskey, I think, recently.
We do.
Firstly, does Australia like whiskey a lot? And secondly, when it comes to the brands that you cover as a publication, is there a lot of sponsored content that you go out and produce, or is it covering revenue neutral events as well?
It's mainly revenue neutral. We're held high by our sort of editorial values. So we get a lot of invitations to a lot of events and launches and stuff, but we'll go with our sort of journalistic hats on to review and report back on. We do run a bit of sponsored content. We need to make money sometimes. But to answer your first question, does Australia like whiskey? Yes. And Australia, on the whiskey front, is really sort of growing, sort of not just consumer tastes, but in also producing our own sort of world-renowned whiskies. I think, was it 2014? A whiskey from that little island down at the bottom of Tasmania, bottom of Australia, which is part of Australia, Tasmania. They produced what was deemed the world's best whiskey in 2014 from Sullivan's Cove. Yeah, I know, we knocked Scotland off this perch. So then we were knocked off our perch by the Japanese, who are doing fantastic things with whiskies as well.
I heard that Japan's doing amazing things with whiskey. There's whiskey produced here, and there's Canada has absolutely blown me away with what's made here, and I never expected it to be as good as it is. But the one thing that really strikes me is that there's a lot of alcohol made and sold here that's in plastic bottles, and to me, and they're lovely, and I'm not going to criticize because they're local, but to me, a whiskey has a lovely historic style label. It's got that romance to it. Over and on, back in London on Cavendish Street, there was the whiskey store, and they sold whiskies from around the world and rums from around the world. And I just like looking in their window and just marveling at these beautiful glass bottles and the history of all of these different products. How important do you think history is to luxury brands? Because I was just reading a piece from let me get it up, ventureharbor.com, how luxury brands, if they work smart, really leverage their history.
I think history is paramount to luxury brands and to what they, to their brand ethos. That's not to say that new luxury brands sort of entering the market can't be just as good or can't sort of aspire to be just as good. But history gives the brand sort of kudos and also shows that, you know, consumers have been with that brand on a journey, and I think new consumers to that brand would like to see a bit of history. It's a roadmap to sort of where that brand has been, and maybe even where that brand is going. So yeah, I think it's paramount to especially in the luxury brand market.
I was talking earlier about the difference between fast-moving consumer goods, FMCGs, and luxury goods. It's like going out. You know, you could go and buy a really cheap toilet roll, or go and buy, you know, gold leaf to wipe whatever, and you know that's a choice of luxury or decadence or an FMCG. But an example to me would be going into London and going into Knightsbridge, going to the McLaren store and buying a car. You're buying a statement. You're buying something because of its build quality and the heritage of their racing, rather than going and buying brand X, Y, or Z car, which would do exactly the same job and a fraction of the money. But you're not going to get necessarily the grim factor. You're not going to get the same feeling, the fuzzy feeling inside when it's on your driveway or in your garage, when you turn up to an event. And how much do you think of luxury brands, and this goes into the production process, which we'll talk about in a second, but when luxury brands are as much about how you're perceived for having the luxury brand as much as the luxury brand is itself. And I'll take that on to say that, you know, the videos that were produced in the time that we were both in London, when it was a luxury one, it was really important to catch the people at the event enjoying it as much as the item, whatever it may be, itself.
Yeah, I think that the targeted audience is a key factor, and luxury brands, they concentrate massively on that audience. So yeah, so when we're producing sort of luxury brand videos, it is important to show the demographic that brand is aimed at and is working for. Definitely, it gives, you know, people who might be outside that target sort of audience, and they're watching a video like that, it gives them an idea of the sort of audience that's there, and maybe it also gives them a little bit of aspiration. They might, you know, want to become part of that audience one day themselves. So yeah, I think there's a few factors at play there. Definitely, but yeah, it's a key thing that luxury brands work for and work on.
It must. I mean, we've seen celebrities who have been asked not to wear certain brands of clothing because the clothing brands, and I think you probably guessed the story that I'm referring to, where Celebx was effectively offered money not to wear the brand's clothing because they didn't want to be associated with him or the lifestyle or that kind of market. Do you think it's really soul destroying for someone to go out and develop a brand new Bentley or a Rolls Royce and then to see it in and it's not a thing that I'm bringing up, but they go, okay, the people that can afford this are people who have, multi-million-dollar incomes, and that's our target audience. And it's nice to see it in popular culture, but that's not who we want. Limp Bizkit standing on the hood of a Bentley. It's not right.
And that must be tough to take for those manufacturers and and those companies. But yeah, I think they definitely have a demographic in mind that they want to sell to, and that they're seen to be selling to, seen to be marketing at. And there are ways they do go to lengths to make sure that their target audience and their target market is seen to be and is projected correctly, and they don't want, as you say, the likes of, or maybe they wouldn't mind a biscuit driving a Bentley. I don't think that works quite so well for them. But
I don't know. Fred Durst, I don't know, unless he's delivering each car and singing a song with it. I don't think that's what they're going to want.
No.
When it comes to the work that you're doing at Executive Style, you're working on the production side and content editor as well. Explain a bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I work essentially as a journalist and as a video journalist. So as well as writing articles and stories, the sort of principal role of my job is to go out and create video content. So to go out, we used to call it a predator. So a producer, a shooter, and an editor. So yeah, I'll go out and I am the cameraman, and then if there's some interviews that need doing, I'll sort of set up the camera and then sort of step aside and do the interviews with the talent. Then I'll bring that footage back and cut it up and edit it into the beautiful little videos that you can see on executivestyle.com.au. And then sometimes, probably about 50% of the time, I'll have to try and smash out an article to go with those vids. So it keeps me very busy, keeps me on my toes. And it's go.
So one of the things that from where we were in London, the time frames were incredibly short because we were producing content to get it available for media, and then they've got their own production cycle. Is it slightly easier now for you because you're not producing it and going, oh, I've got to get it out, get it off for approvals, get it back, okay, re-edit, got to get it over to the media have used it, then it goes off to my team and we're going and grabbing it all and evidencing it? Is it now easier because you go there and you're welcome because you're a respected publication and you just make the content rather than having to second guess everyone?
The timeframes are so considerably easier. It's incredible. Like, we used to do ridiculous turnarounds, and I don't know how we did them when we were working at TVC. But yeah, now as a media outlet, we set the time frame. So I went to an event last night. It was an Audi and Hamilton Island event. So Hamilton Island is one of those beautiful little islands off the Queensland coast up in the northeast of Australia, just at the foot of or amongst the Barrier Reef. And every year they have this ridiculous yacht racing week. It's called the Audi Hamilton Island Racing Week. So they had a launch event last night, and I took the camera along. And in the past, maybe in London, we would have to turn that video around for this morning to get it up. My time frame's a little bit more lax. So I've been working on it this morning, and I'll work on it a bit more, but I'm probably not going to produce it until Tuesday or something. So I set the deadlines. And the other thing that has really sort of helped that time frame is the approvals process. And as an agency, you've got to send those videos and your work back to the client for the client to sign off. Often they're not in the same place, so you're doing it over the internet, and you're at the mercy of upload speeds, download speeds, and whether they have internet connection.
In a sweat, because I remember when our former colleague Mike was doing a feed. He was working for a global airline, and he had landed in Mexico, and it was like, right, I've edited it, I've got to get it over to you, and the upload speed was 30 kilobit, and at 30k, every FTP was just timing out. And we were going through everything. This has got to be out for broadcasters. We've got to get it out. Got to get it out. So in the end, he uploaded it. He uploaded it to YouTube just so that we would get something out. He uploaded it to YouTube. I used a YouTube ripper to pull it down again, re-encoded it or transcoded it into the format that the site needed, and got it up. So we had something there temporarily, and then effectively we just did lots of phoning around to find a place to be able to do an uplink, but there was nowhere in that part of Mexico that could do it. It was Cancun, so that someone had to go from Cancun to Mexico City to do an uplink. and that went via a cab. And I remember that. That was an incredibly expensive day on the expenses. And there I was waiting for this feed. It's like, silly o'clock in the morning in London. It's like, come on, where is it? Where is it? And then all this drama. And the one thing about that was we nailed it. We got it out and it was done, and the client was happy and the media were happy because they got what they needed in the interim, and then full quality version appeared afterwards. Tim Martin, I've known you for 6 years now. So where's the sunnies from your head? If there's one thing I know about Tim Martin, he's always had sunglasses embedded into. There we go. And actually, that's something that intrigues me, because I saw you at the Australian Grand Prix, and you had your sunnies and you had your look. Do you ever find that there's a cultural difference between luxury marketing in Australia and luxury marketing in London? Because if you turned up at an event in London with your sunnies in your hair, it might be a bit awkward. Is it a bit more relaxed there, even though it's still the top echelon?
Yes, I think just by the nature of the climate, it's a bit more relaxed. So the sunnies aren't frowned upon here as they sort of are and were in the UK. Sunnies are needed. The sun is so harsh, so bright. You've got to protect your eyes, and as long as you have a good pair on, I've been accused of having some. I have about. I'm a sunglasses hoarder, so I think I have about 53 pairs, and incredible. And of those 53, there's probably only about 4 that I'd wear to a luxury event. But definitely the Aussie climbs almost dictate that if you're in an event during the day, then it's fine to wear them. And then sort of when the evening comes, you can just put them into your blazer or into your shirt or whatever. Or if you may, just keep them on your head most of the evening. But I'd be lost without sunglasses for sure.
Just a couple more things, because as time gets on, I can see the newsroom behind you is kicking into action. The guy behind you with the headphones on, he looked around earlier. What's going on? So give him a pat on the shoulder for me.
I want to ask you a question, Dan.
Blimey, go on.
We haven't. I don't think blab is a big thing in Oz yet. So tell me, I'd only heard of it through you.
Okay.
And then I was logging in, just before. Apologies that I was late. Our clocks changed on Sunday, so I think there was a little bit of.
On the recording, if you watch this back, you'll see me flounder, and I'll go, maybe it's a clock change thing. Okay, 100%. So actually, I'm working with a number of brands, and the reason that Blab's a really interesting one for me is that it's that ability for brands, whether they're luxury or fast-moving or even industrial, to get closer to their audience potentially. So Blab was created like a phoenix by the guys that were going to resurrect Bebo, that god-awful social network. They quickly realized after they bought Bebo for $1 that it was a really, really bad idea, and they shelved it. So they all went to the pub, and on their website you can see rather than doing a written history, they've done a infographic, which is the way that everyone should do their corporate history, because it cuts out all the words, and you just follow it through, and you realize they were sat at a pub, they had a napkin, they wrote out, wouldn't it be good to have people able to have video chats together, have people with tweeting and getting involved and putting messages, and the ability to export it to YouTube, etc. So it's relatively new. It's come about as an extension to Slack, and I don't know if Slack's over there. So yeah, Slack's a little bit better known, and we use it in this building because I'm in my office within a co-working building, and when there's events or whatever, we use Slack to communicate with each other. And I found it as a link offer there. And my friend in Surrey Nat, he said, hey, let's do a blab after we'd done Hangouts. And Hangouts are great, don't get me wrong. And again, they've got that ability for a brand to get closer to their audience and make it really natural. I'm not saying that produced videos are unnatural, but for a question and answer or behind the scenes, talking to the experts, it's just really nice and organic to use this platform. And we'd initially used Hangouts, and the problem with Google Hangouts is that there's so many configuration options, and you can do so much with it, including adding lower thirds and animating bits and silly hats and things. And it's all completely unnecessary. The great thing about this is, as long as you've got a Twitter account, you can set up a chat. And the fact that it exports to YouTube is great, because then you can put it onto a corporate YouTube page, or you can then rip it and then have the conversation as was repurposed for other things, whack it into a blog. So I'd actually highly recommend this if you have long distances between maybe a producer of a widget or something. So let's say someone makes a sparkling Australian wine that's very, very nice, but they're in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. But
you're from Tasmania, and they're sparkling wine.
There you go. So the ability to still do a story and speak to the experts, and then do it as a talking head. If you've ever watched anything from, like, for example, TMZ have gone to this live chat forum on a TV show now. And effectively, that's all that's happening here. You're broadcasting via an open conversation, and it's really good. And if you've got people who want to, ask the experts, for example, you pre-promote it via your social channels or in print or via your publication, and you just say, hey, we're going to have a live chat at this time. And there's less, I wouldn't say there's less of a risk. There's the same amount of risk as any Twitter chats or any Reddit forums or Ask Me Anythings. But you can boot people off of here, which is the really significant. And people laugh, but on Ask Me Anythings, you can't boot people off. On Twitter interviews, those are the most lethal, because for example,
you get the trolls who come on, and
you get the trolls. You make really nice cars, they're luxurious, but how come it's only drug dealers that buy them? And that's the last thing you want for a client to be seeing. It's not happened to me, but knowing what trolls are like. I mean, for example, recently on here, I was having a good conversation with someone, and there was a comment which was someone was trying to dial in, and I didn't let them in because I didn't know who they were, and sometimes you just don't. I didn't let them in, and the guy put, well, I kind of agree with the bald-headed bleep 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 bleep. Now immediately I can block him, and I'm protecting me, I'm protecting the people I was speaking to, and I removed the comment. And that is really important for reputation management. That's really key. And I'd especially imagine if you went into that area with luxury productions, that the ability to assure a client or an interviewee that, should anything come up, it will be handled. You can see it immediately, you pop it off, and when it's on watch again, it won't even appear. So that's why I really like this.
Is it essentially vlogging? Live vlogging?
Yeah, I mean, just think of it as it's just live web chats, really, and you can then, when you've done the export via where it says share last 30 at the moment, I think you can see it as well, where it says that, and I don't know if I'm pointing the right way, so I'll cover myself. It's over there. Okay. What that turns into for the administrator of the chat is share to YouTube. And again, using a YouTube Ripper, you can then, turn it into whatever you want. So it actually becomes a really good tool. And you were great. You said, I said, use an earpiece, because then it's not duplexing and cutting out. And if you go to a really quiet space, or you add a microphone or do this, that, and the other, suddenly the codecs that they're using broadcast standard codecs, and the compression gets a bit hard at times, but the quality then, you can guarantee it will still sound good.
No, the same, and it's so user friendly to just my Twitter and boom, here I am talking to you in Canada.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's 7:49 p.m. here. What on earth is the time there at the moment?
It is 11:49 a.m. in the future.
Future boy. Yes, I was talking to Chris Flack the other day, who's won yet another international award for his graphic design. He's doing very, very, very well. And if people want to watch that blab with Chris Flack, just go on to martincharlton.ca/CafeSoCo and scroll down and you'll see the one with Chris Flack. As with all of them, and we talk everything on that page from visual communication to blogging or travel vlogging and digital storytelling. And now this one will be on there as well, talking about luxury brand content production and talking to Tim in Australia. What as we get towards wrapping it up, what do you find the most frustrating thing when you're trying to explain to people, journalism of regular magazines, publications, and then you say, oh, but I work at Executive Style and it's luxury and lifestyle. How do you explain it to people who don't immediately go, yeah?
I explain it, I guess. I explain it. I use who are one of our biggest competitors, so it's a form of flattery for them and silly on my behalf to use them, but I use them because they're a fairly world-renowned brand. I say we're like GQ, we're just better and more editorially aware. We like to probe sort of what we're looking at and really give it some balance and some depth. But I use that, and if that maybe doesn't resonate with them, we cater to that sort of that luxury brand sector, to the upper echelon, the professionals who have a bit of sort of disposable cash and like the finer things in life, and that's who we're principally targeted at, and that's our audience, and we have a great audience, and I hope our audience enjoy the product that we deliver and the many articles and videos. We work hard to make them look slick and to reflect the content and the stories and the brands that we're reporting on. Because we're sort of that luxury level, and it's a great place.
So it's a bit like when you're talking about the luxury brands that you're covering, the actual publication itself needs to reflect it as a publication, because for example, if you turned up with a phone and you were like, oh, right, I'm just going to shoot a quick video, wobble, 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 wobble. Immediately, the people who are aligned with luxury are going to go, what's this joker doing? I want something a bit nice. Where's that other magazine? Your background, you were in sports journalism and then presenting and TV and a bit of acting stuff as well, which I've seen. And then disappeared off to the UK and now back in Australia. How I mean, journalism is journalism, and that will always be true, and it's telling stories in an interpretive way for your audience. How have you found the understanding of a luxury audience as against a sports fan audience? Someone that likes Aussie rules may not necessarily be someone who likes luxury, but someone who's into luxury may like Aussie rules.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you have to go a bit deeper with the luxury brand audience. They seem to really know what they like, what brands they like, what products they like, and yeah. So for a sports audience. They like sport, and they'll generally like all sports and have a general love of that. Whereas, we cover 10, we have 10 sort of different areas that we cover on exec style, from men's health to fitness to business travel. And we've really got to sort of probe and go in depth of all of those and the luxury brands that come under those. So, cars is a big one for us. And in making our editorial decisions, we don't often report on Ford or sort of Holden down here in Australia.
Yep.
We stick to the Bentleys and the Audis and the BMWs and stuff like that because that is what our audience want. And we have to reflect that in our coverage and stuff. So yeah, there was a little bit of work there of not. You can assume a little bit of prior knowledge, but you've actually got to do a bit of background yourself and really sort of get immersed in that industry, in that brand or that category that you're talking about, and you've got to know a bit. You can't just come across as some Yahoo who is waltzed in, which maybe I was, a year ago. I've definitely had to up my wardrobe, going out and meeting, doing these launches and stuff. I've now got a selection of jackets, and nice trousers and shoes, whereas I used to have one jacket with one of the buttons ripped off, and that's what that jacket is what I used to present the sport with day in, day out for 18 months. So yeah, it's been a great learning curve.
Have you I don't know if you found this, and sometimes it is with luxury brands or organizations in that sphere. But sometimes when you go to presentations as a journo, as someone from the media, they do these kind of blue sky sessions when they're explaining about the wibbly wibbly wob and the why we did this, and back in 1875 Bob fell off a tree and then it inspired him to create soft cushion pants and all this kind of stuff. And then after about 20 minutes of this really dull presentation, they do then the unveiling, and the interview opportunities come up. And then some people are just so heavily trained in their message that they'll only rigidly say certain things. Have you found that, one, it's frustrating that it's been so massaged as a message that you don't get that genuine feel that your audience, your readers are definitely going to want? And have you ever got to the point where you've just had to go, okay, I'm just going to have to ask my questions and just see what I get out of it?
Oh, definitely. Big time. People more and more these days are so media managed and so towing the line, the company line, that it comes across a little bit fake, and you don't want that. I don't want that as a journalist, and I don't want to be portraying that to my readers because they don't want that. So it's refreshing when you come across someone who's almost has the courage to not toe the party line, to say what they want, say what they think. And I had a great one the other day. We had the master distiller for Glenmorangie whiskey was out in Australia, and they were launching, I think, their 7th private edition, some new fancy whiskey. But he had this great mindset in that he would just say whatever. And we said, I asked him, are you scared that this what they just launched, it was called Milchon, and it was like a sweet shop sort of candy whiskey. I was like, are you not scared that the old whiskey heads back in Scotland, where your base, where your distillery is, and your consumers and stuff are going to be like, what is this? This is not Scotch. And he said, I'm not scared. That's exactly what I want. I want to disrupt the industry. And it's great. Like those are the moments when you're like, nice. Those are the nice sort of light bulb moments. You're like, oh yeah, being a journalist is all right. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But there are a lot of times when they're just sort of, they don't have a sheet in front of them, but they're just reading from, a script and just giving sort of.
You and I both know that effectively it's that they're staring forwards, but actually just inside their head here, inside it's got word for word. I must say this. If someone asks this, I'll say that. Da, 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 da. As we really do wrap, as it's actually getting dark here in Canada. I want to ask you the question about the Australian Grand Prix. Nico Rosberg won the race. You ended up with your hands on his trophy. Firstly, how on earth did that happen? And was this work?
Well, you know me, Dan. I seem to have a certain luck in finding myself in the right place at the right time. I was actually at the Grand Prix as a guest of Mercedes AMG. So not only did we get to sort of mingle with Nico and share a celebratory champagne at the end of the race, we actually got to watch the first 12 laps of the race from inside the Mercedes garage. So they're next to the engineers and the mechanics and stuff as they're going nuts. And we just moved out literally just before Fernando Alonso had his incredible crash. But yeah, so we were invited back into the garage at the end of the race and toasted Nico. And Nico, as you could see from the pictures and stuff, and understandably, was very stoked with his win. And then there was the so for those of my friends and family who don't understand and like Formula One as much as I do, and I know you do, they said, "What were you doing holding up a hubcap?" I was like, a hubcap? That was Nico Rosberg's winning trophy.
One of the finest pieces of silver on the planet, and it's a hubcap.
Exactly. So no, it was a fantastic moment to cap off what was an incredible day. And Mercedes were incredible hosts. Obviously I wanted Danny Ricciardo to win because he's a good Aussie boy. And he'll get there when he gets the right car. But no, it was fantastic, and good to share a moment with Nico and his hubcap.
Yeah, the hubcap. I shall remember that for a long time. So as we approach 8 p.m. here, or just past 8 p.m. here in Canada, I was about to say Australia. I'm not in Australia. You are. If people want to find out more about Executive Style, the publication, where could they do that?
Executivestyle.com.au is our website, is our online portal, and that's basically where all that stuff is. We used to be a print lift out on in the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age and stuff. Here now we're just totally online, digital first, and growing that video first mentality as well. But we're also on social media. We're on Insta. Executive Style AU on Instagram. # exec styling is our little hashtag that we have, and we're on Twitter and Facebook. It's a great brand. People, and it's not just about Aussie products and Aussie brands and stuff. It has a global mentality, and we do sort of travel the world, reporting on brands and categories around the world. So no, it's a great one. We do have quite an international audience. It's a good one to get behind.
Yeah, no, and I will pop a follow on that one because that certainly looks interesting to me. If you're ever in Canada, I'm thinking, let's think of a brand. BlackBerry? Maybe not. If you're ever in Canada, do tap us up. And I've just got to say, this is CafeSoCo, thanks to Martin Charlton Communications. Views and opinions expressed in this production are not necessarily those of Martin Charlton Communications or people involved in this live blab or the watch again via the website, or even the people speaking in the video in OE 2016. I have to say that because it's all thanks to Martin Charlton that I can do this. Tim, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the record just there. Thank you.
No worries.